Brace yourselves for a zombie apocalypse with a side of British humor. Join us as we delve into the iconic 2004 comedy horror film and its 20th anniversary, Shaun of the Dead. Welcome to the No More Late Fees podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Jackie, and we're just two best friends and ex-Blockbuster employees rewatching some of the best and worst movies from the late 90s and early 2000s. This week, we are kicking off spooky season and talking about the 2004 zombie classic, Shaun of the Dead. But before we dive in, let's get into some
housekeeping.
If you love the podcast and you want to support us, here are a few ways that you can.
Well, did you know that writing a review and or rating us helps us get more listeners? If you want to be featured and help us grow, make sure you head to Apple, Spotify, Podchasers, or your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review.
And if you like what you hear and want to buy us a virtual cup of coffee, or if you want to bribe us into doing one of your favorite movies from our time period, 95 to 2005, for $50, head on over to ko-fi.com/no-more-late-fees.
Plus, we've got merch. Head to our Redbubble store at nomorelatefees.redbubble.com and you can check out all of our cool branded t-shirts, cups, and so much more. But this week, we are not alone. We're excited to have returning guests and the host of the Real Lovers podcast, Marley, back to join us.
Hey, Marley. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. This is I can't wait to talk about this movie.
We're so excited for you to be here with us. Last time Marley was with us, it was during our Fast and the Furious episode. So if you haven't caught that, check out our show notes. We'll link it down there. And then if you want to get to know Marley a little bit better and see our ranking of our hottest zombie slayers, check back later this week for our bonus episode. But Danielle,
yes,
tell us about Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun is a 29-something loser with a dull, easy existence. When he's not working at the electronics store, he lives with his slovenly best friend, Ed, in a small flat on the outskirts of London. The only unpredictable element in his life is his girlfriend, Liz, who wishes desperately for Shaun to grow up and be a man. When the town is inexplicably overrun with zombies, Shaun must rise to the occasion and protect both Liz, his mother, and all of their friends. The movie stars Simon Pegg, Kate Ashfield, Lucy Davis, Nick Frost, Dylan Moran, Bill Nye, and Penelope Wilton. The movie was directed by Edgar Wright and written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. You can currently watch it on Peacock, but before we start, let's get into our ratings rewind.
So you know the drill. Before we get into the movie, we'll reveal the rating our Y2K versions of ourselves would give. Then at the end, we'll see if our current selves agree with our initial rating. Our scale consists of would buy it again.
The best, would play on repeat.
5-day rental.
Would watch again.
2-day rental.
Okay, but nothing to write home about.
And same-day rental.
Throw it in the bin. It's rubbish. My British accent sucks.
Marley, what is your Y2K rating of Shaun of the Dead?
Shaun of the Dead was kind of a weird movie for me, like in the early 2000s. I remember really liking it, but during this time, British humor didn't really hit for me. It took later in life for me to like see Edgar Wright's like brilliant filmmaking, and like I think this is probably the best script like from the Cornetto trilogy. But I think I would go 5-day rental. Like I appreciated this movie like at the time, but I didn't understand its brilliance.
Jackie?
I feel like I've seen this, but I didn't remember anything that wasn't like a pop culture reference and like memes or on TikTok and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go 2-day rental for Y2K, Jackie.
I own this movie.
Oh.
We know I'm not a horror girl, but I really like this movie.
I
So
do like British humor and
I
British
do very much. Yeah. So it was a would buy for me.
nice.
Yeah. All
Well,
right.
let's get into the box office. Why don't you hit us with the facts, Danielle?
This movie had a $6 million budget and it made $38.7 million worldwide. So yeah, it did pretty good. A lot of pounds.
A lot of cheddar.
A lot of cheddar. So the movie was inspired by Art, which is an episode of Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright's sitcom. So they did a sitcom called Spaced, and it was written by Pegg and Jessica Hines and directed by Wright. The episode involved Pegg's character hallucinating a zombie invasion after playing the video game Resident Evil 2 while under the influence of amphetamines. So interesting.
Yeah.
So both Pegg and Wright had like a mutual appreciation for George A. Romero's Dead trilogy of zombie films. So they decided to write their own film, and then in like late 1999, they conceived and pitched the film to Film 4, who took it on until their production budget was cut back. Despite this, Wright was still invested in the production and refused to take other television directing jobs until Shaun of the Dead was made, which left him in quite a bit of debt for a while. And then, according to Wright, other companies passed on it because they weren't sure what the tone was and said it wasn't all that scary and not that funny. They didn't get it. So after 18 months, Working Title Films picked the project up, which Wright felt was ironic as the film mocks the classic British rom-coms that Working Title produces. The film was then announced at the 2002 Cannes Film Festival, and then like magic, we got it in the theaters and it did really well. So both the American critics Roger Ebert and Robert K. Elder said that the film brought something more to the zombie genre. Ebert wrote that he was by now more or less exhausted by the cinematic possibilities of killing zombies, and so he was glad for what Shaun of the Dead brought to the table outside of this, writing that instead of focusing on the undead and trying to get the laughs there, it treats the living characters as sitcom regulars whose conflicts and arguments keep getting interrupted by annoying flesh eaters. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Well,
accurate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into the cast and crew, let's hear a message from our pod pals.
G'day, g'day, g'day. Don't skip. Let me interrupt the podcast that you're currently listening to with some blatant self-promotion. What do you get when you mix two Aussie mates, a splash of booze, well, more than a splash, and some microphones? You get Cheers Big Ears, hosted by myself, the Chad, and my mate, Matt, and sometimes, but more often than not now, my missus, Bobby. It's a podcast of adult beverages and not so adult conversation. It's not serious, far from it. Well, except for that one episode, but that was just that one. We're available wherever you get your podcast fix. Cheers, Big Ears.
All right, Jackie. Cast and crew.
Yeah. So the film's cast features several British comedians, comedy actors, and sitcom stars, most prominently from Spaced, Black Books, and The Office, and co-stars other actors from the same shows.
I was very excited that like 90% of this cast has been on Doctor Who. And I'm like literally looking at all of them, figuring out which episodes. Like Nick Frost, Bill, the woman who played his mom. Yeah, like
Has Simon Pegg been on Doctor Who?
I don't know, but I'm not sure.
He's
But
been.
I love Nick's episode though.
That's something I need to get caught up on Doctor Who. So
Love it. What else?
He
Oh,
has.
he has? Okay,
Yeah.
see?
He played the editor in the 2005 episode The Long Game.
Hmm.
And he also narrated the first series of the making of documentary series Doctor Who Confidential.
Look at that. What I think you might find interesting, Marley, is that the filmmakers originally approached Helen Mirren to play Shaun's mother, Barbara, which she turned down with a note that she would rather play other funnier characters, which Helen. Now, we know Helen has a very interesting taste because clearly she loves being part of the family
Mm-hmm.
in the Fast and the Furious series.
I think she just likes driving fast cars, but that's just me.
And then we found out when we were doing our dodgeball episode that that's like one of her favorite movies. So maybe she just likes really slapstick American comedy?
She's
Question
also
mark.
she's also a national treasure too, Book of Secrets. So maybe she just likes
Yes.
treasure hunting as well. So
We all know because I be looking for my girl every time. Where's she at?
where's Mount Rushmore?
So Frost met Pegg when he was working as a waiter and was brought aboard Space despite a lack of acting experience. And Frost explained that Shaun and Ed had a dynamic similar to that of Simon and himself in real life, as they had been living together for years.
I like how Frost has become like so much better with his acting skills. Like he wasn't bad in this, but it's just like night and day in comparison to some of his other roles. So it's nice. There's a show that I used to watch that was on AMC that he randomly was in. I was like, why is he in this? But I'm really happy about it. God, what was it called?
Well, what's
It's like,
interesting too about Nick Frost and Simon Pegg is, especially like in the last movie of the Cornetto trilogy, Shaun of the Dead is the first part of the Cornetto trilogy. Roles swap, and I feel like that's in The World's End, which is the third movie.
yeah,
Is I think that's when Nick Frost kind of like turned a corner a little bit. Like, hey, I can do other things besides
the sloppy best friend.
the sloppy best friend. Yeah.
Yeah. The unreliable best friend, I guess.
hmm
Yeah, he's played so many diverse different roles. He's great as like a good guy, as a bad guy, as a morally ambiguous character. God,
Even like his character in Hot Fuzz, like I don't think it's necessarily like a sloppy character, like a
yeah,
sloppy best friend character. It's more of like it's more a little bit like immature. He hasn't seen so much because he's lived in a small town. So I
yeah,
like how each character that he plays throughout this trilogy, he's evolved. So
yeah. All of the readers and television presenters are real people portraying themselves. I love when they do that because then it's like, as you're watching it, you're like, oh,
mhm.
that's my news person. Add some familiarity to it.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone watched it during the pandemic, like when the pandemic started, because like when you think back of the pandemic, I think our brains so want us to like have stability. So it's like you can't even really think about how fucking wild it was
Mm-hmm.
that it was a scenario. Like rewatching this movie, totally different perspective because like this shit is real now. Like it's not a fantasy. We went through a fucking pandemic. We're still in it and still trying to like pretend it's not happening, I guess. So it was wild to watch this movie and have that context that I didn't have when I watched it the first few times, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, really any zombie content, it's really hard to consume now after what we've been through for like the last 4 years. So,
All right, let's get into the movie.
yeah.
Okay. So Shaun of the Dead starts out. We're introduced to Shaun, played by Simon Pegg. He's at the local pub, the Winchester, with his girlfriend Liz, played by Kate Ashfield. And they're having this serious conversation, and she's like, "It's not that I don't like Ed." And Ed's like standing right there, and he's just like, whatever. And then Shaun kind of has a similar reaction about Liz's two friends. Is it Diane and
That shithole.
David, right?
David is such a shit.
Yes.
David, or Harry Potter, as Edgar Wright calls him in the DVD commentary.
So Liz is just lamenting about like they do the same shit every day. They go to the pub, hang out with their friends. Their relationship has just become mundane and stale, and she wants Shaun to want better for himself and kind of wants their own space away from their flatmates. And Shaun's like, but I've been with Ed forever. And so he's not getting it. And so Liz is like, peace.
I love how in the beginning, as a viewer, you're questioning like what the hell Liz sees in
Yes.
Shaun. And then the progression throughout the movie, you kind of see those qualities come out.
Mhm.
And it's not just Liz, like a lot of people in his life are really trying to push him to grow up. He has a real flatmate that actually pays rent and is supposed to live there, named Krishman. Yeah, I guess Krishman. And he's like, you need to grow up. Your bestie here isn't helping. He's holding you back, weighing you
Yeah.
down. And then he has this like very tumultuous relationship with his stepdad, who he just has a feeling like his stepdad is always disappointed in him. And he's constantly saying, oh, like, that's not my dad. And, so that's not going on. His mom is kind of living with like rainbow color glasses situation, but she wants to see him married and and doing better for himself. So like Liz is not the only one. Like everyone's pretty much like, Shaun, grow the fuck up. And even at work, he has the kids that he has to employ. The youths are kind of looking at him like, bitch, how can you tell us what to do, but when you are old as fuck and you're not, like, you're gonna work here forever, like,
Yeah.
what's going on, you know?
I think of what I love most about like this opening scene is like I mentioned like at the first part, how Edgar Wright is just a master at setup and payoff. Like this opening conversation between like these friends, it's really Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, because he also co-wrote it as well.
Mm-hmm.
That it's just them setting up everything just brilliantly without unnecessary exposition. And I don't know, I just think it's really great writing. So
And I love that, like, through the course of Shaun's day, because you see him get up, you meet his bestie, who's a fucking mess. The house is a mess. Like, you're already seeing the situation. You see Ed. But like throughout the course of him, throughout his day of him leaving to go to work, going to the store, all that stuff, every single person that you meet or see, even in the background, they end up showing up again later when the zombie apocalypse happens. So that's kind of cool, like little Easter eggs to see the people as he ran into them in the beginning in this scene.
And you start to see weird things happen. Like he notices a lady falls down at a bus stop and like people are trying to help her. And so we start to see the first rumblings of a zombie apocalypse happening. I do really like when he's at the electronics store, he does say Ash is under the weather. And I'm like, oh, like from Evil Dead. So along with the Dead trilogy that they pull a lot from, there's other sprinklings and paying homage to other zombie movies as well.
Yeah, they were inspired by Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Raising Arizona, Back to the Future, Brain Dead, and The Birds, your favorite movie, Jackie.
Woof. No, thank you.
Also, what's interesting is when they came up with the film, it was right while he was riding in a cab with Pegg after they filmed that zombie episode. And then he said, and another influence was from Wright's life that came from how he missed the 2001 foot and mouth epidemic by simply not having paid any attention to the news for a fortnight, and turned his television on one day to see cattle being burned, which left him confused. Due to this, Wright said it's totally plausible that the world could be ending and these two guys could be the last to know, as they also skip over the news on television in the film, which I very much relate to because my family knows that I don't watch traditional news at all. I'm not really paying attention. So Shayla is always the person that has to tell me there's a hurricane coming or something big happens. Like, I never know. She was the person who told me about 9/11. I was getting ready to go to class. She called me and she's like, turn on the news. And I was like, I'm going to be late. And she's like, bitch, turn on the TV. I would have I could have probably gone. I mean, once I went to convocation, they would have said something, but no fucking idea. None whatsoever.
And one of the things that I love most about when Shaun is flipping through the TV like that, that's yet again, it's another way of revealing what's happening. Because one thing I hate about when in movies is when the filmmaker points the camera at the TV and oh, this is what's happening. The Edgar Wright, he's so good with visual comedy and just using every aspect of filmmaking into telling the story. He's just I'm just gonna flip through the channels, and it's just I just love how every single channel that you flip to, it's kind of cluing the audience in and Shaun in oh, shit is really going down. So
and it's every time they start to say something important, like how it started or what to do, he just flips. I'm like, that was information we needed.
I like that this movie never tells us what the cause of this epidemic is.
Yeah.
It also kind of plays into, how did this start? And I mean, I think with zombie movies, because we are informed, we've seen other zombie movies, we don't even need to know how it starts. You just tell us it's a zombie situation happening. We're like, yeah, plausible. Makes sense.
Are they
people are getting infected?
Right.
People are infected and they want to eat my brain. So yeah. I'm running away. So.
We just need to know the rules. How do you kill them? How, Jackie said, how fast are they? How smart are they? Because there's levels to this. And
can you fall in love?
Can you fall in love? Yes, exactly.
I love how someone asked Simon Pegg one time, and I'm totally paraphrasing and probably botching it, why they chose slow zombies over fast zombies. And he's like, just because you turn into a zombie doesn't mean you drink an energy drink.
Right.
He's like, no, they're slow for a reason.
Right. They're literally brain dead. I'm just surprised, some zombie movies, they could smell people and that's how they get you, because they want and they usually want your brains, but these zombies were really gutting bitches, literally.
They just wanted body parts.
Yeah. It was a lot.
Let's just be glad that these zombies couldn't smell anyone, because I know, just calling back to Danielle's do these characters bathe?
They don't.
Ed, you could. Thank God this movie didn't have smell-o-vision, because
Ed doesn't bathe and Shaun fucking didn't bathe. They went on a bender after Liz breaks up with him. And he still, I was okay, did he shower? Did he change his clothes? But I saw that the area where the pen had leaked and I was like, bitch, didn't shower. And then there's
didn't
another
do laundry.
Didn't nothing. Nasty. And then when you see him go to the bathroom at one point I don't know what the fuck what he was doing up there. I think, he went to use the bathroom. Duh. He washes his hands and I said, I know he didn't use soap. I know it. I just see water and that's it. The water doesn't even look soapy in the slightest.
Well, and Nick Frost allegedly kept his genitals shaved throughout the production to create a genuine need to scratch that the character demanded.
That's dedication to the craft. I don't think he needed to do all that, but all right.
And the in the opening scene where it's Ed and Shaun and they're both sitting on the couch. And I think it's when the other flatmate comes in.
Yeah.
And Ed's scratching his balls. That's Nick Frost actually scratching his balls.
Yeah.
So according to Edgar Wright.
No.
Well,
please.
Method acting. Love it.
Yep.
Yeah, so like Danielle said, Liz is sick of Shaun's shit. He's supposed to book a nice dinner for them, just the two of them to go out, and he can't even be bothered to do that. He's too busy playing video games.
I just feel like he's distracted. Like it's almost like he daydreams or something, or I don't want to say ADHD, but like he cannot focus. It's
He
like too much stuff, a
disassociates.
lot. Yeah.
Well, no, like I I don't want to say I completely related to Shaun at this point, but I've like especially in college, like I had a best friend that would like we played video games, we smoked weed, like like all day every day, and you would just forget like the responsibilities that you would have like throughout the day, and then luckily I was just like, know what, I can't do this anymore, and I
Yeah.
gotta you gotta move on, but
Right.
you can't. The thing that I know we'll get into it, but the thing that I love so much about like this movie is that just because you're moving on, it doesn't necessarily mean that you completely have to abandon like those friendships. And
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into it, but that's what I love most about this movie. So
Definitely. So Shaun is very distraught. And so he goes to the Winchester, their local watering hole, with Ed to drown their sorrows. And so they get hammered, and they like there's in the scene, they're just talking shit about the people in the bar. And like, I don't know if they're just making stuff up about them, like backstories, like Danielle likes to do, or if this is actually
Who these
their
people are.
past. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're like talking really loudly and pointing. I'm like, bitch, they know you're talking about them.
They're too wasted to care.
Yeah. So they stumble home, pass out. Shaun wakes up hungover. And is it Shaun or Ed that needs a cornetto?
it's Shaun.
It's
Because
Shaun.
that
Okay.
because that's when that they have a conversation, right? Like,
Well,
oh, do you
Shaun
want something
goes,
from the shop? So
yeah, Shaun goes every morning,
yeah.
apparently. But instead, like I was confused because when they got hammered, they were playing music and their flatmate was like, "What the fuck? It's like 3 in the
Mhm.
morning and it's Sunday." They're like, "It's the weekend." But he was like, "It's Sunday and I have to go to work in a few hours." So I'm
It,
guessing it's Sunday night.
no, it's Sunday night. It's Sunday night, and he has to go to work in a few hours. And they're like, this is another thing that Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg just like peppered into the script. He
Mhm.
says that everyone called out from work because they're sick, so I
Mhm.
have to cover for them. And I'm
Right.
like, that's like, especially on a rewatch, I was like, wow, this is brilliant. Like
Yeah.
just every little thing that he's peppering in, just cluing in the audience. Like, and I think even like his flatmate, he has like a bandage on his hand, and then that's when Ed actually says like, "Oh, what happened to your hand?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got mugged." And
And then
Because I
know.
got bit
yeah,
by a crackhead.
yeah,
Like I love that every single character, because like a zombie situation is so out of their realm that they wouldn't even
Mhm.
think, they're not thinking anything. So like you said, Shaun is seeing all this weird shit
mhm,
happen and doesn't say what the fuck's going on. He's
Yeah.
just like, wow, a lot of weird shit happening, you know?
yeah. When you said Jackie, when you're describing them like stumbling home, one of my favorite parts, like the thing where I busted up laughing, is like when they're stumbling home and they see like the zombie in the background,
Mhm.
and they're like singing that song, like doing the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and then the, the zombie just starts moaning. And that's like another thing that Edgar Wright does super well. He likes to sync stuff, like sync
Mhm.
like audio stuff with like everything that's going on, which we'll get into.
Yeah,
Something
Yeah.
there's
brilliant that
another
happens later.
scene.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
sorry, had to mention that.
you're good. So this is when he decides he needs a cornetto, which is actually inspired by Edgar Wright because he once ate a cornetto to get over a hangover. So he thought it would be funny if they did the same thing after a night of drinking. And then this spurred on the what is referred to as the unofficial Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy,
Mhm.
which I was telling Amber, she's guested on the pod before, that we were doing this movie, and she's like, "Oh, how many of the Cornetto trilogy are in your time frame?" And I'm like, "The what now?"
Only one. We only get
So
one.
I did not get the reference. So, but the red wrapper, which is a strawberry flavor, makes an appearance in this movie because red represents blood and zombies. And then Hot Fuzz, it was blue and vanilla representing the police. And then World's End is green and peppermint representing sci-fi and extraterrestrial elements. So there was a
Nice.
method to his madness.
Yeah. So we only get this one because it's in 2004. Hot Fuzz comes out in
Yeah.
2007, so it's out of our range. And then World's End is 2013. So
Sad days.
When Shaun gets back, it's just like, there's a girl in the garden. Like, we see that every day. So they go out to see what the deal is. They're still really not registering that she's a zombie. She starts attacking them, and Shaun pushes her, and she falls into like an umbrella stand. And they're like, "Oh shit, we just killed someone." But then she gets up with like this giant hole in her stomach, and that's when it finally clicks, like, shit's fucked.
And as a viewer throughout this movie, like, it's not a full horror movie, but the tension as an audience member is there because you're like, are these people fucking stupid? Like, you're stressed because you know that's a zombie and these motherfuckers are not getting it and are like putting themselves in danger. And then even when they do figure it out, they don't get real weapons. They start
No.
throwing fucking records. What?
Well, in defense of Shaun and Ed, like, if this were in a zombie apocalypse, and you didn't have any weapons near you, would you just grab anything that, like, or you would grab a cricket bat or grab records? And yeah,
The cricket bat and the shovel made sense to me.
Yes. And they had it. So it's like, why did you not get that instead of these records?
Well, and before the records, they just fill a laundry basket with random ass shit. Like a toaster, like some bowls. Like, I was like, what are we doing, guys?
Right.
I don't
think
know if it's just because, like, I always have a mental plan for everything. So I'm like, I know what I'll do in a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, like fire.
Yeah.
Axe, knives. I mean,
even that shovel, because you can, with enough force, you can pop someone's head off.
yeah, like what are we really doing?
Pause,
Or
Jackie?
setting traps like Home Alone. Like, I'd be digging holes in that motherfucking backyard.
Yep.
With leaves over it, and boom, got him, bitch.
Yeah.
Ditches. I would be doing the most because you ain't gonna get me. You ain't gonna get me.
And we find out that the zombies figure out that people are inside based on like sound and light.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, why are we not just going upstairs in the bar? Then they can't hear you. And you're good.
Right. Or going to one place and just turning up the music, having it locked up and leave it. So just attracting them so that you have a distraction. Like, I kind of understand because, look, as much as we like to say we would do this and that, there is this kind of thing that happens when you are in a real situation and you're just like, what the fuck? It's like, it's so unreal that you don't know what's gonna happen. But again, they make really dumb decisions because one, it's a comedy, but two, this is how you get the heightened anxiety as a viewer with this whole situation. Like, that's what makes it feel almost horror-esque because you're scared for their safety because they're fucking stupid.
They're fucking stupid. And also I love how the zombie initially gets into like their Shaun and Ed's house, just walking through an open door.
Yeah.
That their flatmate says, "You left the door open." And just repeating, like, he just kept repeating himself. And the fact that they almost died because a zombie walked in and almost ate their brains. So
I'm just confused why their friend doesn't come downstairs because he's in, I guess maybe he died in the shower and like that's when it finally turned because I would have just imagined that he would have come down by then, but we find out later because after they try to fight off these other two, they're in the house. That's when Shaun goes upstairs to pretend to wash his hands after using the bathroom, and then he sees his friend as a zombie, a naked zombie, and he's like, I gotta get out of here. So this is when they make a plan because his mom calls him and is like, hey, your dad's not feeling well. And this is, of course, Shaun's like, that's not my dad. And he's like, you gotta get out of there. But his mom is like, nah, ride or die. That's my husband. What are you talking about? And he knows his mom. Apparently, she doesn't watch the news either because she don't know what the fuck's going on. So Shaun's like, okay, I got to make a plan. So he tells Ed, we're going to take the car. We're going to go to my mom's house, get my mom, kill my stepdad, and then we have to go get Liz. And Ed's such a dick. He's like, why do we have to get Liz? She broke up with you. Man, we're in a horrible situation. Like, we have to go save Liz. Ed, quit it.
Yeah.
And I do like that Shaun actually says, like, even though she did break up with him, it's just like he still cares about her. Like it's not like, oh, she broke my heart type of things in movies. I don't want anything to deal with her.
Well, also he's in denial. He's like, we're getting back together. He doesn't believe her. He even has it on a whiteboard, get Liz back. So he's like not even accepting that they're broken up. I think that's like there hasn't even been enough time for it to be real for him.
He still has a chance.
Yeah. Still has a chance.
There's still a chance.
Yeah.
I love when he gets to mom's house. Mom's just like, we're waiting for the doctor. It's fine. He's fine. He's just a little under the weather. And then she asks him if he's hungry. He's like, no. She's like, okay, I'll make sandwiches. Like she got her mom routine down.
She's like, I'm too stressed. And he looks at his stepdad and realizes that his stepdad is still pretty coherent, but his arm is like in a sling. So we as the audience are questioning if like he just had some sort of fall or something, or if he really has been bitten by a zombie.
Yeah.
And he tries to convince his mom. He's like, how much do you love this man? Because I think we need to leave him. Because again, he's trying not to tell her because he thinks she's going to panic or whatever. This actress plays like aloof and Penelope Wilton. She plays this role to a T.
Yes.
That she's completely disassociated. She lives in another magical world and but she also screams at Shaun because he says that Philip, his stepdad, has touched him, and his mom's like, what? He's like, okay, I'm lying. Yeah.
And we find out mom and Philip have been married for 17 years. This is not a new man in Shaun's life. This man has been around for most of your life. Like,
since he was like 12.
Yeah.
But Shaun's dad died. So I think he just has a lot of animosity. Plus him and his stepdad just kind of like bump heads and they're very different. And his stepdad is very like hard on him. He has a lot of expectations he's trying to push on. So I think that's one of the other reasons. Like Shaun just feels like Philip doesn't really love him. So it's almost like he's rejecting him because he feels rejected in some ways, you know?
Well, I think his dad is also like, or his stepdad is also very disappointed in him as well, because like Shaun is like he's like a slob living with this kind of like toxic best friend. He's working retail, selling TVs and like computers, and he's got to be in debt. Like I don't think there's no way he's making rent like every single month and still working that weird retail job where I guess he's a manager or something like that. But he's also not very good at his job either.
No,
so it's
not in the slightest. I think Philip just has expectations. He believes Shaun could do better. But I do love that Ed has this subplot going on because he's really excited to drive Krishman's car. But
Mhm.
once they get to Barbara and Philip's house, Sean's parents, he realizes that Philip has it was a Jaguar?
Yeah.
A green Jaguar, because that's all I know.
Yep.
And
Green car.
green car. And now in Ed's head, he's like, oh,
Bet.
we gotta drive that. And Shaun is like, priorities, but also tells him Philip is never going to let you drive that car.
Yeah.
They get outside, ready to go, and Ed has crashed the fucking car. That is his resolution, that he wants to drive this car, so he's gonna fuck up the other car, which dumb, because they could have taken 2 cars. That would have been helpful on this journey. And so they get in the Jaguar, and then Ed is playing crazy loud rock music. This very much annoys Philip, and he's like, shut this down. Like, shut it down. So they
He's
take the
also
music.
not like Philip is not feeling very well either. So
Yeah,
this
he's
loud,
not
heavy
doing
metal,
good.
yeah.
Not doing good.
And so
This is when they go to Liz.
Right. So they're on their way to Liz's, or no, they get Liz and company. So it's Liz, Diane, and
Harry Potter.
David,
Harry Potter.
which they have to fight because David is being a dick, does not want to go. Diane seems more willing and just like both Diane and Liz kind of trust Shaun because he came to get them or whatever. And David is fighting this tooth and nail. He's like, we're totally safe here, but you could already see the zombies have started to like move in towards the apartment. So
yeah. And so they're driving to the Winchester because Shaun's like, we can get in there, we can barricade ourselves. Like, there's food, there's beer, whatever. We'll be safe there. But then Philip starts apologizing to Shaun and like, take care of your mother, and I'm really sorry that we didn't have a better relationship. And then Phil's dead. And then he reanimates as a zombie, and so everyone has to scramble out of the car, and they essentially lock Philip in his Jag so he
With
can't.
the music blaring still.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know why they didn't just like open the
Take
door
him
to let
out?
Philip out
Yeah.
and then all come in through the other side
Yeah.
to like get in the car. But I guess that would take away the other plot lines. But I do love that when Philip is apologizing, he finally explains himself. So Shaun kind of gets a better understanding. He says that, you know, I just thought with your dad being gone that you needed someone to look up to, you needed someone to push you, and I thought I could be that person, but I didn't mean to make you feel like you weren't loved. Like, I love you. And so like I think one of the greatest things about this movie is that it has true relationships and emotions, so that like the zombie part is kind of like a backstory,
A
like
subplot.
a subplot, and you're really just feeling the connections and the loss that Shaun is feeling because, you know, now he's lost his stepdad and almost realizing that this man wasn't as bad as he thought it was in the midst of all this, and he has no time to grieve. His mom is like got no time to grieve, so much so that like at this point she gets bit, but we don't know because she doesn't want him to worry, Shaun to worry, so she kind of hides it. It's just it hit me so much more this time around watching this movie.
Yeah.
And I think we all know or even have like moms. I know my mom is similar to that, where she hides stuff like about her just because she doesn't want me to worry. And that's what parents really like. They want the best for their children. It may not seem like it from like certain like reactions that they give us, but when it all comes down to it, parents want the best for the people that they raised for years and years. So that's a great point, Daniel.
They have to go on foot now. They're going
Yes.
through backyards and stuff like that. And this is another scene that just really irks my fucking nerves, because it's like everyone is just so fucking spacey. You know, first of all, you're kind of like following Shaun, but you don't have like a man flanking to make sure that Barbara is okay. Fucking idiot Ed is walking before her. And then idiot Barbara starts like looking around and she's like, hey, I know these people or whatever. Bitch, if you don't keep going. And so she sees someone she knows. He's a fucking zombie. They all climb over this fence because the next fence is to get to the bar.
Mhm.
And Shaun's like, wait, are we all here? How do you not know your mom's not there?
Mm.
Ed, why did you not notice Barbara's gone? And then you hear Barbara scream. And so, like, Shaun jumps over, he jumps on the trampoline just to go to find his, go back to find his mom. And then, like, they're all waiting for him. Of course, this is another time David is like saying, why are you believing in Shaun? Like, he just, they should have fucking loved him.
Yeah.
David's the worst.
We would have voted Dave off the island very quickly.
Yeah. And then when they do get Barbara, there's another zombie that same zombie comes through, and fucking Ed and David are just standing there. They don't even try. So it's what do you call it? Diane and Liz that find a weapon to help him fight this thing because these other two are fucking useless. Like, Ed is on his phone. Who are you talking to? Who?
Is that when he was like, hey, Noodle, what's up?
He did that, I think, when they got to the bar.
Yeah.
But he was like just texting. Even in the earlier when they encountered the first zombie, he goes and gets a camera to take a picture.
Yes.
Which, by the best, when he gets a camera to take a picture, when he's rewinding the film, probably the best gag. The sound effect gag in the entire movie. And then Shaun is just like grabs the camera and then throws it away.
Like,
so unbothered.
So frustrating. But once Shaun fights the zombie and he gets on top of the slide to see like what's the situation at the bar, he realizes zombies everywhere, like they're fucked.
Yeah. And it's also in this scene where they're like creeping through and they meet like the weirdo group that is like them but slightly different as they pass through. And Martin Freeman is part of that group randomly. I'm like, hey, I know you.
I forgot he was in this movie.
Yeah.
I forgot.
So yeah, Shaun comes up with a plan. He's like, everyone practice being a zombie. We're just going to pretend like we're zombies too to get through this giant crowd and get to the Winchester. So everyone puts on their best zombie impression and it works, which I'm like, why are we not using that strategy for the rest of the movie?
Right.
Shaun's mom gives the best line in the movie when like I love like the scene like setting up how they're like, oh, see how the zombies look, like I want you to channel like his energy. I want you to channel like his aura. Is that's what the kids are saying these days? Aura?
Yeah.
Like give the right aura. And then the camera pans over, like whip pans. But we didn't mention that. That's kind of Edgar Wright's signature. But whip pans over to Shaun's mom, and she's just like dead in the face. And they're like, "Oh wow, that's really good." And then she like is that also like another hint? Like maybe she was bit too, and she's just kind of like losing it, or
she's just so overwhelmed. She's just lost her husband. Like she is just disassociating. Like she is no longer on planet Earth. But it works well when you have to pretend to be a zombie.
Right.
Do you remember? I just kind of lost that line at the top of my head, but it's so funny. It's like something like she's not like on this world or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they make it to the Winchester. They're trying to get in, trying to figure out how to get in. And someone suggests breaking a window, and Shaun's like, no, because then they'll follow us in. Like, we can't do that.
Right.
Fucking David.
Can't wait. And he's just so mad. He thinks He thinks this is a game. He thinks
Yeah.
Shaun is trying to be the hero. And it's like, bitch, we are literally
dying,
fighting for
going
our
to die.
lives.
Yeah. Ugh. So he empties a trash can and breaks the window. All the zombies are now focused on them because of the noise. And so Shaun's like, okay, I'm going to distract all of them and I'm going to run around the back. When I do that, you guys climb in through the window. So that's the plan. They get into the Winchester. Zombie 101. You immediately start boarding up those windows with whatever you can fucking find.
Yep.
Mhm.
I think
Instead,
they
we're
didn't
just
want to
chilling.
they didn't want to board it up because they didn't. I don't know why they didn't. Like I think that they didn't board it up because they wanted Shaun. They needed a way for Shaun to get in, but they could have just opened the front door.
Or like when Shaun's in, there's also no sense of urgency to try and
Right.
board up
Yeah.
Well,
the
there's
place.
no sense.
Go ahead.
Sorry. There's no sense of urgency like when
No.
Shaun gets back. One, if I was them and my friend created a distraction to come back, and then he just randomly like pops up, I'm just like, did you get bit? Like you just randomly like showed up, but like no one's like looking for like any like
Yeah.
bite marks or anything like that. I'm just like, that's the first thing I would be asking like my friend. I know he saved us in that moment, but I'm just like,
Full
I'm a little
body
suspect.
inspections for everyone.
Mhm.
There is no more modesty when it comes to a zombie apocalypse.
Mhm.
You got to show me everything to make sure you're not going to turn. So, Shaun, they're trying to turn the lights on, but in doing that, they like notify the zombies that they're in there. And so now they're trying to find a way in. And then somehow the jukebox turns on.
It turns on because fucking Ed plugs that shit in. Well, first Ed plugs in. I don't know if it's a
It's like a
jukebox or a slot
or
machine and makes
something.
all this noise
Yeah.
because when Shaun goes to the back, he sees all those zombies that followed him in, so they're
Mhm.
fucking screwed. And I just feel like even before that happened, they were just sitting, eating snacks and drinking.
Mhm.
That this is when they should have came up with a plan. Like, where do we
Mhm.
go next? Like, they're just sitting and waiting for I don't know who, instead of trying to figure out, like, how do we kill some of these zombies? If we need to move to another place, where would we go? Like, nothing. They're
Nothing.
just sitting there,
Chilling.
waiting to die.
Yeah.
They're just waiting it out because I feel like that's probably what the dumbest plan that they ever
Yeah.
like come up with. It's like there's no waiting it out. Like
Yeah.
you got to figure out your next step. So
And like Shaun has thought of everything thus far. Like,
Right.
can't y'all help? Like,
I
do
would have left
something.
them. I would have fucking left them. There ain't no way that this is the group that I'm stuck with. And they're like fighting about the stupidest shit. Like
Yeah.
the sense of urgency just is not happening. They are really just going through all the stuff that they have not talked about as a group, like the things they hate about each other, whatever. That's what's bubbling up. We don't have time for this. I'm
see,
so irritated.
that's why I told you that if a zombie apocalypse happens, I'm abandoning everyone. I don't care. I'm abandoning my family. Sorry, Dom. I'm abandoning my family, just friends. I don't care. Like we're not gonna have Wi-Fi. We're not gonna have any cell signal. So it's like, might as well just.
I'm taking a pill and I'm that's it. I'm not trying
That's
to
dark.
survive. I already told my mom this. There is no scenario that I'm trying to survive nothing. Okay? The moment things get too hard, I'm out this bitch. I feel like God will understand.
Oh no, I am out of sheer stubbornness and wanting to win. I am fighting for my life.
There's no game that I want to win. There's no Wi-Fi. I'll never be able to have a chocolate wave cake from the Red Lobster
Costco?
again.
Oh.
Well, the Costco cake is way gone, so like that's really over.
Are you saying there's nothing to live for?
There's no there. Yes, like I'm not trying to struggle. Like, I'm not trying to go back to old days. I'm
Yeah,
not trying to farm. I'm not trying to live simple life. I need the internet. I need fast food. I
I'd
need to
braid your hair,
travel.
Danielle. I
J-
tried to weave you a,
I
a
think I think
dress.
what I would do is I would still try and podcast the Rail Lovers podcast through ham radio. You know how like in post-apocalyptic movies or TV shows, there's always like that one person like on the
Yeah.
radio but
Yeah.
giving out information. But I wouldn't be giving out information. I would just be going through.
Talk
You would
about
literally
movies.
every day be doing the scene to scene of every Fast and the Furious movie.
No, I would still be on the Letterboxd top 250.
Oh my God. See, like that's the other thing. No more movies. No more movie popcorn. I know this sounds real surface. I know this sounds insane that I'm literally on our podcast saying that I'm gonna debt myself because but like, come on, guys. Come on.
I mean, there are those of us who like to camp, and there are those of us who don't. So,
If
like,
I
I'm fine with roughing it.
if I
Danielle
had
is not.
kids, then of course, then I have to live. I've got to make sure my kids are okay. I ain't got no kids. I ain't got no husband. Now I know my mom will miss me, but she already knows what's up.
Well, at least she knows.
I've
So if we
already
ever get
told
to
her.
that point,
Yeah, I'll be like, sorry, Christine.
R.I.P.
I tried to sway her, and she was
You know-
steadfast that there's no popcorn, movie popcorn. So, yeah.
What she tells me is, remember that movie, The Mist?
oh,
Like,
doesn't know.
she's like, all those people died, and then a few minutes later, they were saved.
It was
Like,
over.
so don't do that so early. She's like, give it time. I was like, I love that you used the movie reference, Ma.
I you could cut this out if you want to, but going back to Zombieland, you mentioned it earlier, or
Mhm.
but I imagine like you, Danielle, just being like Woody Harrelson's character, Tennessee, like how he's looking for a Twinkie.
Yes.
Danielle, you're looking for movie theater popcorn.
I feel like the popcorn thing might not be as hard to
But
do
you could
because, like,
still cook it over like a
right.
campfire.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's that popcorn salt is not going to be available. Now, if I know if I have time, I can order all of it on Amazon and have a stockpile. Or I'd break into the movie theater because
Yeah.
who's really going to be breaking into that? And then I would get my salt.
Yeah, and I'm sure they have like giant ass bags of it. It'll last you a while.
Yeah, but
Oh,
no.
those giant bags were traumatic for me when I worked at the movie theater.
Plus, like with all of my health stuff, I need constant maintenance. Like
That's
there,
true.
I wouldn't know what to do. Yeah, it's a pill for me.
So the jukebox starts playing
Queen,
"Having a Good Time" by Queen,
so happy.
and they at the same time the bartender comes out as a zombie. And so
Poor old man.
three of them take pull cues, and like I would have broken one in half so I had something to like shank him with, but instead they're just like gently beating him with these pull cues to the beat of Queen.
And I loved like the line, like, because when the jukebox comes on and the Queen song like is playing like really loudly, they're like, oh, we can't have this because the zombies are gonna like know we're here and they're gonna like get even more excited. And the line that Shaun has is like, he says, kill the Queen. I mean, the jukebox. So
And David takes forever. Actually, he never even unplugs the jukebox. He's just like, I don't know what to do.
Because he's pressing all the goddamn buttons
Yeah.
and the lights flickering outside. He doesn't even take time to try to see which one is which. It's just
Yeah.
like a mess. And then he gives up because he sucks.
Mhm.
I also am like, why isn't someone just stabbing this guy in the head?
Yeah.
And then Diane says, oh, you know, it would be a good idea to start throwing darts, even though
Yeah.
I suck at it. And she hits Shaun fucking right in the head.
Noggin.
Oh my God. These people are the worst.
And
The worst.
I'm like, that dart would have gone through his skull. Like, there's no way Shaun is living after a dart to the head.
Also, I just feel like my Nana would be better in this situation than all these people. Just saying.
That's true.
Yeah.
They finally throw John, the bartender, into the jukebox, so the music stops playing. And Liz goes to check on Barbara, Shaun's mom, and Barbara's like, "Let me give you this necklace. It was given to me by Shaun's real dad." And like, because Barbara knows she's dying.
Yeah.
And she did that classic old lady thing where you just stick Kleenex in your sleeve. And she's like, "Oh, I didn't want to say anything. I thought Shaun would worry." So she's just like, that's why I didn't tell anyone. But she's like very obviously dying. And this is the only part that I agree with David on, is he's like, "We gotta shoot her. She's dead."
I mean, he's right, but the way
Immediately.
he's right, but the way he did it and just like almost like he's happy about, like, you have not tried to help at all. At all. You
And now
have
you want to
not tried to
shoot
shoot.
Shaun's zombie
Right.
mom.
Like, it just feels egregious and malicious at this point. So,
And
and it,
so David should at least just try and put himself in Shaun's shoes,
Mhm.
because I tried to do this myself. Like, if I ever had like a loved one, like a family member, like I know that they were gonna turn, and I'm just like, I'm not. I hate to say it, I don't think I could do it. It's like I know it would be my life like on the line, but I was just
yeah.
like that's his mom.
I
Like,
would have
that's
asked Ed to do it.
Mhm.
I couldn't see it. Like, it's one
no.
of the reasons why I didn't go see my dad before we had him cremated, because
Mhm.
like I just didn't want that version of him to be the last thing I saw. So
Mhm.
like, to shoot her, so like I would have had maybe Ed burn her, like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
pour some alcohol on her and burn her and just like not looked at it.
Yeah.
But just the fact that David was so adamant that they needed to shoot her and he just was like an asshole about it. And then at the last minute, he tells Shaun to do it. And like, that you guys already hate each other. So why don't you just do it? Because you know that you could take that burden off of him. So he's not having to remember that for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
You know? It was just really sad. And Simon Pegg did an amazing job showing that emotion and like the crying. I just was like, I was crying so much during this scene. It was so hard to watch.
So, quick question that I had when watching this scene. Like, I know it's like there's always scenes like this in like zombie movies where it's like a loved one is about to turn and like, oh,
Yeah.
do we kill them? What's stopping them was just like leaving, like pushing her out the door.
Yeah, just like throwing her back outside. Be with all
Yeah.
the other zombies.
Yeah. Make love with all the zombies.
Yeah.
Find your
Yeah.
husband out there. So
Yeah, let her go find her husband,
yeah. I
But
don't know. I understand that you gotta have drama in this
yeah.
situation, but it's just like, I don't know. That could be a solution. So
And then after this, David continues to be even more of an ass. And this is like in between, like when Shaun actually shoots his mom because he ends up having to.
Mhm.
He like gets a bottle and like smashes it and is literally putting it up to David's neck, and so is Ed. And then Diane's like, well, this is not fair. So Ed's like, oh yeah. So he gives her a bottle so that she could put it towards Shaun, because even though in this scene she admits that she knows that the only reason David ever got close to her is because he has continuously been in love with Liz.
Mhm.
And she's like, I've made my peace with it or whatever. But David just, when he's called out about it, and I think what pushes him over the edge is not even his wife saying, or girlfriend, I don't even know what her role is with him. It's when Liz really starts screaming at him. He then opens the fucking window or the doors to like, he's like, I'm getting out of here. Like, nothing this man does make sense. And so watching them rip him limb from limb was the most satisfying thing in this whole
Shaun
movie.
and Diane just eventually just have David's legs.
Yeah.
But then Diane loses her shit and opens the door and runs out and starts beating the zombies with David's leg. So then Diane's dead too. I'm like, everyone's losing their fucking mind.
And then they can't stop the zombies. Ed is trying to make Molotov's the cocktails.
Yeah.
And he gets bitten. And so Shaun is like so distraught. But I do love there is one scene before all this stuff happens when they're at the bar. And David is like, oh, why don't you say something to your husband or whatever? And then he's like, what are you talking about? He's not my husband. And then Ed comes up with a beer and he's like, it's a little warm. He's like, thanks, babe. Or something like
It's so good. It's so good.
But like now Ed is getting fucked up by the zombies and Shaun is in disarray. Liz is like, bitch, like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
He finally snaps out of it and they jump over the bar and he's just calling for Ed, even though logically he knows that Ed is been bitten, you know, like, and they light the bar on fire. And Ed is like, look, we can go downstairs in the cellar or whatever. And they go downstairs, which again, you're putting yourself in another situation. You should have left Ed upstairs because he's bitten. He's gonna die, but they don't. And so they have like some hard conversations in the basement.
Well, okay, so they go down to the basement, and we have established that there's a basement in this in the Winchester. The issue that I have here, I know we've established that they're not very smart, like at all. Why didn't they go down to the basement initially if they knew that there was a basement?
I don't know if they
because
were.
Then
they're dumb.
The zombies wouldn't have known that they went down there because they wouldn't have seen them go down there.
Right.
That's logic.
I'm not sure. So then they only have like what 2 bullets left, and so this is when Ed is like, look, I don't mind getting eaten. Kind of sweet in a weird way. So Liz and Shaun are like, we can just, one of us shoot the other and then shoot ourselves in the head. And they're just trying to figure out, like, they know this is the end. And that's when they find the lift to get them upstairs. So they leave Ed behind and they go upstairs and they're just surrounded by fucking zombies at this point. And you think it's pretty much the end for them.
But then the military shows up.
To go back to a little bit to Ed and Shaun's like reaction. One of the best fart jokes in a movie, where because it like it was a setup like earlier, like when like they're sitting like on the couch, and Ed's basically like, "Hey, I'm sorry. Sorry about what?" And he's just like, "Oh." And then that's paid off like in that the conversation that they're having like in the basement when Ed is like pouring everything out to Shaun and saying like, "Hey, I don't want to hold you back. Go be with Liz. I know I'm kind of he doesn't say that he's a terrible person, but he just knows that Shaun could be so much better. I don't want to say that Edgar Wright watched Good Will Hunting, but there's a lot of similarities to Good Will Hunting between Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's character, where it's just like this is a best friend that just wants like the best like for their friend.
Yeah.
And I love how the way it just ends, where it's just like it ends with like just Ed farting and just like, I'm not crying. It just smells bad. It's so good. And also just like when Shaun and Liz get on the lift, that's kind of like a metaphor of Shaun and Liz getting lifted up to like higher and better places.
Yeah.
And Shaun's just or Ed's just wherever he's at. So
yeah.
And then we see after the military rescues them, we see a couple of news packages, and one is about Enrique Ramirez, who had to kill his whole zombified family. It's like this
That's
9-year-old kid.
crazy.
I'm like, oh my God. But then it was like, that shit probably would happen if there was a zombie apocalypse. Like,
Yeah.
crazy.
And they have
But
like games with the zombies. They make the
yeah,
zombies workers. And these all feel like shit that people would do.
yes,
Capitalism.
yes, yeah. So it's 6 months later. We see, yeah, the remaining zombies are kind of domesticated,
Yeah.
and Liz and Shaun are now living together, and she's kind of like adapted somewhat to his way of life, like just kind of, what are we going to do today?
Routine. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I do like that she's fine with the routine because in the beginning she was saying that she wanted to live life, she wanted to travel, she wanted something. But after that crazy traumatic shit, she's like, I'm fine. I don't need to do shit.
Yeah. And
she goes to go make like tea or something.
that's right. And then Shaun's like, I'm going to go out to the garden for a bit. She's like, okay, have fun. And he goes to the shed, and they just have zombie Ed shackled in the shed and the PlayStation 2 with the game they always play. And so he still gets to have his best friend.
I don't think it's inhumane because it's literally what Shaun would do. Like, Shaun wasn't doing
That's
shit.
true.
I mean, not Shaun. Ed wasn't doing shit
Yeah.
before. So this is normal. He just
And
tries to bite Shaun. That's all.
And this is yet another payoff where like the Edgar Wright set up like in the first part where their flatmate said like, you don't do shit, Ed. You might as well just live in the shed, and like where you belong. And then the end of the movie, Ed's in the shed as a zombie, just kind of like how he was living life as a zombie in the beginning of the movie. So
Yeah.
I love it, and I just love that you can't kill Ed, like
No.
even though he is kind of a slob, like he's still lovable, and Shaun loves him like a lot. I'm glad that they didn't kill him. So
Yeah.
this is how they interact now.
How
So
they get around, him being bit.
And that is Shaun of the Dead.
All right, you guys, just grab some fun facts we missed.
I like that when Shaun and the group are running out of Liz's flat, they're all carrying weapons, but only Shaun actually hits any zombies because the cricket bat that he has was a padded fake. All of the other items were real and would have hurt the extras.
well, it's not really a fun fact, but it's just something interesting that I found, especially like in this rewatch and knowing that it's the 20th anniversary. Edgar Wright, like, I think it was on a Letterboxd video where he was like answering questions, and he said that like when this movie originally came out, he loved that this movie like played in American cinemas and he got to see, or the UK presented like on the big screen, because growing up he never actually experienced anything like that. And to see a big movie like Shaun of the Dead, and where people are laughing and like having a good time presented like this way, it's just a form of representation that he really appreciated. He's glad that he can make this movie. And I've always really liked filmmakers like Edgar Wright, or even filmmakers like M. Night Shyamalan, that stay true to their roots. And like Shyamalan like makes movies basically in South Philly. Like pretty much all of his movies are shot there.
Yeah.
And I like filmmakers that stay away from like the Hollywood system and kind of do their own thing. And that's what Edgar Wright's been doing for like the last 20 years pretty much. So
yeah.
And I also found it interesting, and like it's not something that I caught on the first watch, and it wasn't until like towards the end of the second watch, but I'm like, England doesn't have firearms readily available to citizens. That's why they had to find alternative weapons.
Yeah.
Which makes for a very different zombie movie than what we're used to.
Right. Because in America, pop, 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 pop.
Second Amendment.
Yes.
Because you wonder why Ed keeps talking about this shotgun at the bar. Like, why is there so much emphasis? Because this has to be the reason why they're able to have a gun, because it's not readily available.
Yeah.
It has to be some gun that Shaun doesn't even think is really loaded, because again, you're not supposed to have them. The actors met 3 weeks before filming began for their read-throughs, and they made minor changes to the script. So, according to Pegg, the script has a set structure with certain lines and actions being repeated throughout the film, making improv harder. So there's only 2 scenes that were improvised, which include when Ed begins to describe the people at the pub, like we were talking about,
Yep.
and when Shaun offers the group some peanuts. Pegg said that the screenplay played well into being an actor in the film because he could write to his own strengths and create his own wish fulfillment, which is cool.
And because of the timing and similarity of the names, distributors were forced to hold this movie back until 2 weeks after Dawn of the Dead was released in the UK.
That's hilarious. I
Yeah.
forgot they both came out in 2004.
Double feature, Dawn of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Double tap.
I haven't seen Dawn of the Dead, and I've seen Shaun of the Dead. So
It's one of my favorites from, it's probably my favorite zombie movie, and definitely from our time period, one of my favorite horror movies.
I'll definitely have to check it out.
Yeah.
For Spooky Month. So.
Really, Sarah Polley in it is just, she's fantastic.
Many of the zombie extras are fans of Spaced, which also starred Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, and was directed by Edgar Wright. And they were recruited through the Spaced Out fan website.
That's
Gotta
fun.
love that. Yeah. All right, Marley, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social?
Well, people can find me talking about movies pretty much everywhere on social media with the username at Marley Loves Film. I'm basically talking about every film, including this film as well. Most common places are Threads, Instagram, and TikTok, and also YouTube a little bit. I'm kind of working on some YouTube videos. And then you can follow the Real Lovers podcast as well on Twitter and then Instagram with the username at Real Lovers Pod. So, yeah.
And if you have any hot takes, you can always follow us, check us out at No More Late Fees on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and Threads. And let's get into our present day ratings.
So Marley, how do you feel on the rewatch?
On the rewatch, I obviously love this movie. I love the Cornetto trilogy. I do think that Hot Fuzz is a better film, but of course, it's a would buy it
Nice.
again. So
I would say it's a 5-day rental for me now. I mean, I still own it, but yeah, it's a 5-day rental. It's still pretty good.
I would agree. Like if someone has this on, I'm definitely sitting down and watching it, and maybe during October, it's worth a rewatch, definitely.
And I think that especially like on this rewatch, like we've already kind of like, I think Jackie, you stated like already, like there's so many little bits and pieces that you could miss on a first watch. So like this movie definitely like rewards like rewatches for sure. So
100%.
Yeah. So if you have any opinions on Dawn of the Dead, if you have any video store stories, did you work at a video store? Hit us up at our quick drop 909-601-6653. Twat us at the Twitters, hum us at the Threads, and you could be featured on a future episode.
And join us next week as we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Mean Girls.
Ooh.
so fetch.
And Marley, it was a blast as always. Thank you for joining us today and supporting us always. I live for your commentary on our episodes. It's so much fun.
Thanks for having me. I literally listen to your podcast like every single day. It's in a regular rotation.
Yay.
And
Oh, thank you.
I'm always so happy to just like chat with my family, my pod family. So.
And as always, be kind and rewind.